Hello and welcome back to the Bird's Eye View podcast. We are here after the Toronto Blue Jays blow out the Los Angeles Dodgers in Game 1 of the World Series. I'm your host, Zach Worden, joined as always by Jori Negin-Shecter. Before we get into it, we would love if you took a second to hit the subscribe and like buttons if you're watching on YouTube, or to leave a review and a follow if you're listening on the audio provider of your choice. Jori, the Toronto Blue Jays are up 1-0 in the World Series.
Holy moly, these Blue Jays, man. Finding new ways to surprise us basically every time they go out there. I did not have this game being an 11-4 blowout before first pitch. I don't even know if I had the Blue Jays winning game one. And to not only keep yourselves in it after going down 2-0, to Blake Snell, to make him work his ass off and have to throw upwards of almost 30 pitches in the first inning and chasing him in the fifth. And then obviously the absolute explosion, absolutely unheard of explosion that followed shortly thereafter, getting to the Dodgers bullpen, which is what we said the Jays would need to do. And they did exactly that. And now they are in the driver's seat following game one of the World Series. Just saying that. Wow, does that feel good to say?
What a flip from the ALCS, where the Blue Jays kind of came out and laid an egg at home. Obviously, they were very ready for this game. They were very committed to their game plan against Blake Snell. I think, you mentioned that first inning against him where he works. I think it was 29 pitches, like if you want to have an exact number on it. And, I think like Alejandro Kirk was a big part of that. I think he saw 17 pitches in his first two at bats, and the Blue Jays just wore Blake Snell down. I tweeted this out after the game, but we talked about it on the World Series preview. But Blake Snell had never given up more than 4 earned runs in any start against the Blue Jays, and that was over 16 career starts. So of course, the one time that he goes out and does worse than that is in the World Series, where he allows 5 earned runs in this game today. But let's really get into start things off with the sixth inning, because obviously they set a record. They scored 9 runs. It is the most runs scored in a single inning of a World Series since the 1968 Tigers. And like, just, obviously Snell comes out and starts that inning, walks Bichette, gives up a single to Alejandro Kirk, and then drills Daulton Varsho in the field. To me, it looked like it hit him like square in the face. Obviously, it kind of got him in the shoulder area, but kind of like a scary moment right away. But he's okay. And then Emmett Sheehan comes in out of the pen, gives up the single to Ernie Clement, and then has the 9 pitch battle with Nathan Lucas. Nathan Lucas obviously immediately going down 0-2 in that at bat. And you're kind of thinking, well, that's a tough pinch hit scenario. But Lucas battles and battles and battles and gets himself an RBI with the walk. Andres Jimenez lines a single through the infield. Springer grounds out, and then Addison Barger.
Addison
Pinch
Barger.
hitting. Addison Barger comes to the plate for Davis Schneider. And Dave Roberts and the Dodgers immediately call to the bullpen, bring in Anthony Bonda, the lefty, which, I think if you're the Blue Jays, you're setting that up right. You're kind of like, well, I don't think that they were necessarily picking Barger versus Banda over Schneider versus Sheehan. I think they were maybe picking Vlad versus Banda over Vlad versus Sheehan. But obviously, Addison Barger, I mean, the first pinch hit grand slam in World Series history. And this is the 121st World Series.
Yeah, that was just what an inning. I mean, the way that they continue to just move the chains, guy after guy contributing, and then, you know, the Barger at bat. What can you even say on a first pitch? Just absolutely pounding that ball into the right field bleachers, and the the crowd reaction, I mean, I was watching at Jack Astor's downtown, and the reaction in the bar, and just the explosion, the absolute euphoria that followed that homer. It's astonishing. It's incredible. Could you have possibly predicted that? I mean, a lefty lefty Barger homer, to blow the World Series open? Are you kidding me? Are you actually joking me? Like
Dead
that's
Plesac predicted it.
well, yeah, him and exactly nobody else. And surely he didn't think that the pinch hit homer was coming in a spot like that. I mean, just you remember when we did our Yesavage against the Yankees episode, and I was kind of like at a loss for words.
Yeah.
Um, I'm feeling a lot of that. I feel like I'm gonna really struggle over the next 30 to 40 minutes to really put into words just how unfathomable this game ultimately turns out to be. Because these Blue Jays, they came in at, I think it may have even been, I mean, not a betting man again, but something like 30% implied probability. Like they were dogs and not just like underdogs. Like the most likely scenario on most betting apps was Dodgers in five or maybe Dodgers in six. Like the Jays, first of all, we're not supposed to be here. Second of all, we're supposed to get absolutely pantsed by the Los Angeles Dodgers. And to completely flip the script and to do that against a lefty where the Jays a lot of their talent is in left-handed hitting. You look at Barger, you look at Lucas, you look at Varsho. Those are some critical second-tier guys that the Blue Jays lean on. They're susceptible to lefties in some ways. And for them to be able to chase Snell the way they did and to be able to tag Bonda the way they did is just nothing short of can I say it was a miracle? Can I say it was unfathomable? I cannot believe the Blue Jays are up 1-0 in this series, and I cannot believe they're up 1-0 in this series, laying an absolute ass whooping on the Los Angeles Dodgers in game one.
The Barger thing is so interesting because we talked about him in the Seattle series of him kind of being like an X factor for that series. And then he kind of got off to the slow start. He hits the home run in low leverage against Luke Jackson. And I know I was specifically kind of like, I don't know if this really jumpstarts him. Boy, was I wrong. Boy, was I wrong. This guy is now hitting 324 in the playoffs with a 1.027 OPS. Like he is back at being like mid-season Barger right now. And like I mean, obviously the home run today was impressive. He comes up with another single later. Um, just crazy stuff. And this is a guy who is going to play an important role in the lineup going forward, right? Like they've got Yamamoto, they've got Glasnow, they've got Shohei. He's going to be in there, and if he can kind of keep up the pace that he's been at, you're going to feel really good about it. And obviously that sixth inning, just to continue with it, like it doesn't end with his grand slam, right? Like Vladdy gets ahead, Kirk hits a homer, um, just really like I don't want to call it like a 2025 Blue Jays-esque inning because 9 runs in the World Series is not esque of any team.
No, it's literally esque of the 1968 Tigers. And even that is like, how many other times has that happened besides that? Just, you know, I just don't know if I have the words to articulate what that win means for this franchise, even in a broader scope. You know, you think of the way that we haven't even touched on the way that they completely neutralize Shohei Ohtani to the point where at the end of the game you get the fans chanting, "We don't need you." Like this was such a even beyond an encapsulation. Like this was such a rubber stamp. We're here and we're here to take prisoners and take names and take your lunch money and take anything else that you hold near and dear to your heart. The Dodgers did not look like the Dodgers today. The Dodgers looked like the New York Yankees. And the way that the Jays hit them around, and the way that even on the pitching front, they held the Dodgers in check and they held their big guns in check. Really, it was Mookie Betts and not a whole lot else, right? I mean, obviously, you get a couple runs early in the ball game, but they really just it was like low leverage Otani homer and a couple of singles to score runs. This was not the Dodgers doing what the Jays did, which was slug them out of the yard.
Yeah, it was a real statement. And I think, we kind of talked about that before in the preview as well, where we're, kind of like there's a chance that the Jays maybe ride a little bit of momentum in here and kind of catch the Dodgers off guard a little bit. And are kind of like, maybe the Dodgers weren't quite expecting this Blue Jays team to show up, right? And I think, that there was a lot of like David versus Goliath talk on at the media day and in the lead up to, and like I kind of rolled my eyes at that a little bit because, like this Blue Jays
I
team,
I I don't know,
it's
man.
like 94 wins. They they're here for a reason. Like
They're here
I
for a reason, but I mean, the Dodgers are still. We either want to talk about dollars and cents. I mean, you spend $1 billion on your rotation. Yeah, you're gonna be Goliath.
I think at the same time, I mean, we've watched this Blue Jays team for 170 some games this year. Like I think there's some not I think there was maybe a little bit of some underestimating probably going in there for sure. But like you mentioned early in the game, and obviously the Dodgers break out to the lead, the Trey Savage stuff. Um, I wonder like just how much he's got left in the tank, man. Like it's been a crazy season for him. Obviously, I think the velo stuff was still all pretty decent today. I'm just pulling it up here. Like obviously he went so heavy with his fastball and he was, average 94.7 with it. Completely went away from the splitter. He only threw 10 of them.
Didn't have it.
And
Just didn't have the pitch at
yeah,
all.
he said that like there was probably a little bit of a feel thing there, but I also thought like it kind of looked like the Dodgers were hunting the splitter early, so I wonder if if they kind of went away from it for that reason. But obviously he goes with fastball, doesn't like have his best stuff on the night. Like the command was kind of wild, some leadoff walks, and gets hurt by that. And obviously the Blue Jays kind of the opposite where they get off to like this. Obviously they load the bases the first inning, can't score, but you feel pretty good about where they're at. And then Snell seems to settle in, but eventually they do get to him with the Daulton Varsho 2-run homer. And it seems like a lot of times this year when the offense has kind of been starting to get into a rut, like a Daulton Varsho homer has been a really important spark for them.
Well, he's just been such an incredible part of this team, considering how much time he ultimately missed this year between the shoulder and the hamstring. Is it safe to say that outside of, maybe Springer and Vladdy and Bo, that this is their most talented position player? I think that, to me, we talk about him as like a tertiary piece. I mean, if this guy played a full season, he would have been worth like 6 wins. This is a very clearly a core piece of this Blue Jays team. And when he's clicking, when he is contributing, the Blue Jays, there's just so much more length to this lineup. He brings such an element of power that certain guys in that second group can't quite bring. This is a legitimate superstar center fielder in Major League Baseball. I mean, obviously you've got guys of the class of, the J-Rods, or you want to think of, I'm trying to think of some other superstar center fielders. I mean, Varsho maybe isn't in that category, but he's knocking on that door.
Yeah, it's a good player. Don't really know other, how else to put it at this point. I think the power being unlocked this year has just been a massive development for him. Like he hit 20 home runs in 71 games this year.
Like, what is that pace wise? I mean, he was homering at a homer per at bat pace
He was
comparable
like,
to 54 homer Joey Bats, right?
yeah,
I mean, if you'll let me pull up the calculator as you riff here, he hits 20 homers in, you said it was 78 games?
71.
71 games.
And now he has three this postseason in what would it be? They've played 12 and he has three. So I mean, if you want to go like full 23 in what would that be? Like 80,
23 and 80,
83?
23 and 83, literally basically a 46 homer pace. That's tops in the American League levels of stuff. Obviously, Cal Raleigh and Aaron Judge notwithstanding, but just incredible, 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 incredible ball player. And a guy you hope is a Blue Jay for a long time because wow, this guy is so incredibly important to these Blue Jays.
Yeah, I think if you think back to the beginning of this season where there was the Alejandro Kirk extension kind of before the season got underway, I could obviously he's a Boris client, but I could kind of see maybe him saying, putting his foot down and be like, I want to be a Blue Jay. So
Yeah. Well, he had said even that he expected eventually one of those Diamondbacks outfielders to get traded. He had said it in the press conference and was like, "I'm so glad it was me." This guy clearly loves Toronto.
Yeah, he's been great. And a great postseason for him. I just kind of sliding down the lineup here. Just going like by OPS, like the postseason OPS for guys in this lineup, like Springer's 916, like we said, Barger's 1.027, Guerrero is 1412, IKF's 521, Kirk's 903, Varsho's 873, Clement is 1058. Lucas
Look at the depth.
786,
Look at the length of this
Jimenez
lineup.
740.
Look, this is incredible. Just the length of this lineup, man. That's how they're going to win this series, and that's what they did today, and it showed.
Let's go back to Trey. I think obviously the guy who again he'll line up for he'll line up for that game 5 start now, which I think maybe pitching on the road would be a little bit of a shock to him at this point. He's like pretty much lived at the Rogers Center in these playoffs. But I mean, what did you kind of make of his outing? I think like we kind of said, sprayed the stuff a little bit. The splitter wasn't there, went fastball, but he kind of did the same thing that he did last start, where he worked around trouble, kind of limited damage. He only gave up the RBI singles to Kike and Will Smith, and kind of, despite I think like the first strike percentage was really down for him, and he was kind of working from behind a lot of the night.
Yeah, he wasn't his usual self, which is really crazy to say for a guy making 7 starts. Hit his speed bumps, but again, worked in and around trouble. And even I think of, he had trouble. Was it the fourth inning where they loaded the bases and he got into some trouble? Or maybe it was the third inning, but he came back the following inning and had a quick 1-2-3 inning, which was such a statement with a punch out or two in there as well, mixed in. Like this guy didn't have his A stuff and was still so incredibly effective on the whole for these Blue Jays. It was really something to behold that the Jays have pulled this top of the rotation arm, dare I say, out of their back pocket. Um, what an incredible story Trey Savage has been, just the entire postseason, really. But for him to get the game 1 start in the World Series and for him to put together this and only really give up 2 earned runs, he got some help along the way for sure. But, at the end of the day, I really don't know what more you could ask for from your from your still rookie eligible next year and probably will end up rookie the favorite top of the rotation arm. Just incredible stuff.
He set the Blue Jays record for most strikeouts in a single postseason. Like he owns that record.
That's so sick. Like that's sick. This is your rookie. This is your kid.
It's pretty crazy to think that he's 22. Obviously, seems mature beyond his years at this point, and how could you not be, given what he's had to do. But I mean, just like, we've talked about it a lot. We've talked a lot about Trey Savage this year, and for it to end up here, I just can't believe it. Like, to me, and I'm probably a little biased, like having been pretty locked in on the Trey thing all year, but like what like one of the best stories of this World Series is the fact that he's out there.
I said it on the radio, and I don't even think it's hyperbolic to say it. Might be the best Blue Jays development story ever. I'm not sure, at least of the last, of the new millennium. I don't know if you can think of a single guy that has had this meteoric of a rise. Obviously, Vladdy was the #1 prospect in baseball, and they've had Ernie Clement, and I'm sure there's others sprinkled around, here, there, and everywhere throughout the decade, but or even the millenniums, I'd said, but no, nobody could have projected this, but at the same time, it's just been steady as she goes excellence from Trey Savage.
Indeed, it has. Impressive stuff. As far as the game goes, I mean, like obviously Kirk goes 3 for 3, has some really tough at bats, hits the homer, really impressive there. I think kind of pulling up the box score after the game and seeing, like Vladdy was 2 for 4 with a walk. Like, again, like he's obviously continued his
Can't get him out.
his success. Like you
Can't
can't
get him
can't
out.
get him out, like no matter who you have on the mound. Um, I think as far as longer term impact on the series, obviously you see two of the Dodgers lefties in Bonda and Wroblewski. best wishes to Alex Vesia and his family. But, I think you kind of see the impact for them not having him, right? Because, he would have been pitching to Addison Barger in that spot had he
100%.
had he been on the roster. So I think Bond, Dave Roberts said it after the game, like they're gonna need Bonda to be better than he has been and better than he was tonight. So will be interesting to see. You get a look at those lefties. The Jays really don't have to use any of their arms, right? Like Louis Varland. I mean, maybe let's give this guy a break. He was warming up for a couple innings there, but they're able to go Fisher, Bassett, Lauer to close it out once they take the big lead, which is huge. The pitching staff as a whole, 13 Ks on the night.
Yeah, that was also really impressive. The Seranthony Dominguez inning was just a thing of beauty.
He was fired up.
That was awesome, man. We'd heard all about him as a playoff performer, and the results had been good, not great, mixed at times. And did he just completely silence any possible critics? Then, in conjunction with that, Mason Fluharty, have yourself a night, take a bow, getting Shohei Ohtani. He came in and he did his job. That's his job this series. It's to be the Shohei Ohtani stopper, and he did exactly that.
Yeah. Bassett obviously, works through the clean inning, has a couple Ks. The velo wasn't quite the same as it was in game 7 of the ALCS where he was like up to 95, nearly 96 today. He was like topping 93. Um sitting 91, but were you kind of surprised that they called on him in that scenario? Because, I think that we had kind of thrown around the idea that he might be sliding into higher leverage after what happened in Game 7.
I am surprised, but they've clearly got their guys, right? They clearly, for them, it's Varland, Hoff, Dominguez,
It's
and
Louis Varland and Louis Varland and
Louis
Louis
Varland.
Varland.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. They still view him as more of a long man than they do anything with leverage. I wonder if part of his velo being down today was him just dialing it back a little bit because he didn't need to dial up to 95 because the score dictated that, right? My sense with him is, he's going to go out there and give you competitive innings. He's very clearly shown that that's how he rolls. He goes out there and he wants the ball. He's got some of that Max Scherzer kind of gene in him. And to me, I don't take any umbrage with the way they chose to use him. They had to just kind of bridge the gap to the end of the game. And you were going to go to those low leverage guys. If Tommy Nance was on the roster as the 13th pitcher, if Yariel Rodriguez was on the roster as the 13th pitcher, those are two guys that almost certainly would have pitched as well. So, they saved their best arms, the guys that are going to be getting the Otanis and the Freemans and the Betts, and it works out for them, right? I mean, I don't really see a universe where Eric Lauer is pitching leverage to Shohei Ohtani again. That intentional, unintentional walk works just fine with me, right? Or even Bassett, going against the middle of the order, right? Again, totally works. Don't see a universe where he's a guy that you call on in a critical spot. You've saved Louis Varland for game 2 and beyond, and they still haven't seen him, and that's going to be critical. And of course, the rest is critical. And they obviously haven't seen Hoffman. And as much as he's probably going to be a second choice to face him, Brendan Little's another guy that the Dodgers didn't get to see, specifically the likes of Ohtani and Freeman. So, the bullpen management to me, I think it worked out just fine. I think they leaned on the guys that they aren't going to lean on in the close games. They used those kind of bridged arms. And as a result, you go into game 2 feeling good that they haven't seen looks at these guys yet. That's been something that John Schneider and co have made such an emphasis on is guys seeing pitching for the second, third, fourth time. And if the Jays can protect their high leverage arms from their top guys, from the Dodgers' best to offer, then I think you're in a good spot.
We are about 30 minutes into this, and Brendan Little just came up. and he didn't pitch into the game. And I am unsure if we have even mentioned Bo Bichette's name because he is confirmed on the roster and started at second base for the first time in his major league career in this game. Obviously, he picks up the hit in the first inning, makes the great play at second base, and then walks to lead off the sixth inning, and then is pinch ran for by IKF. What did you see from Bo, and what do you kind of think is maybe the likely usage for him tomorrow?
I mean, you had kind of indicated to me that he did not look very comfortable out there at second base after that play. I mean, that was a shortstop playing second base if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, he's not helping
You know,
his where am I
he's
gonna
not
play in
helping 2026. He's not helping the allegations here. Um, listen, like if he's gonna be a second baseman with an 850 whatever his OPS and plus defense, that's a top five second baseman in baseball. You know, the moment he steps
I
onto the
mean,
field.
like it again, we're in the World Series. I don't think we really have to worry about Bo Bichette's free agency. As we sit here early in the morning on October 25th. But like Bo Bichette is I think like almost pretty certainly going to seek out a shortstop contract, sign that contract, and then end up at second base.
Pretty much. You're probably going to end up with that. But you know what? If he's going to play such strong defense at second base and be able to fill in at shortstop in a pinch, I think you're more than happy. But to me, the even the at bats, a couple of 0-2 counts that he took the ball the other way and was just in there, just being his usual Bo Bichette self, right? I mean, obviously the power wasn't prolific or anything, but his bat to ball skills remain some of the best on the team, if not the very best on the team. And that in combination with his ability to get into a ball when he times things up is what makes him such a compelling, such an intriguing character, without a shred of doubt in my mind. Now, you were in the building, you had the chance, obviously, to get a better look. What's your sense? I think for you, it's more interesting to almost hear your perspective on how Bichette looked in terms of injury, in terms of comfort, and even anything you might have seen or heard post game.
Yeah, I mean, I was in the second row of the auxiliary press box, so my view was probably not the best perspective on the game. Obviously, not complaining, being in the building, absolutely incredible experience. But obviously, I think it was noticeable that the knee, right? Like it was noticeable that there was probably some favoring there. Obviously, they pinch run for him in the sixth inning. Obviously, if it's big spot, kind of like you're playing for that run at that point. So I think it kind of makes sense to made sense to pinch run for him. But yeah, I mean, to me, John Schneider had said before the game, I believe that, you know, there's certainly not like a set lineup for every game of the series that, they could interchange Bo and George at the DH spot, right? And it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Bo DH tomorrow. And we discussed this before we hit the record button, but I think with Yamamoto on the mound, you certainly could go Bo DH George in. I believe he would play left, Lucas would play right, Barger at third, Clement at second, and you kind of line things up that way so that you get your two lefties in there, and then you kind of protect Bo coming off the first day at second base. But I think when you draw it up, like I think you're probably pretty happy with what Bo was able to give you both offensively and defensively today.
100%. Just me putting on a tinfoil hat here. You think they go crazy with Springer tomorrow if he is in the outfield and flip flop him left and right, depending on the handedness of the batter?
You've been really pounding this. Let's
It's
flip
not the
guys
first time I
depending.
mentioned this. It's
Yeah,
not the
because
first time.
you're doing it with Bo too at short and second. I don't think that they'll do that, but
I didn't think they'd
if
put Bo at second, and they put Bo at second. Stranger
if
things have
if they could
happened.
if they could find a way to have George switch outfield positioning without having to run from right field to left field and from left field to right field, I think that you'd maybe have something there.
Can you
But
imagine he's just out of gas between, he goes inning to inning. Guys like picking up like frequent flyer miles.
yeah, for a guy who you are trying to
To
protect
keep off
physically.
his to keep off his feet.
Yeah, I don't know how productive that would be. So, um, certainly an interesting idea, and I think one that probably has some credence if you're talking like healthy mid-20s outfielders who are at their like peak
Who are
powers
not
defensively.
run with a broken kneecap.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't think we'll see George running back and forth, but you never know. They could do that. That would certainly be a fun little twist to game two, but yeah, not expecting it at this point here. Game two though, Yoshinobu Yamamoto against Kevin Gausman. How are you feeling about that one, and what are you kind of expecting for the series? As Derek Jeter called it a must win for the Dodgers, so
I think it is exactly that. I think my expectations are probably similar to today. Keeping the expectations pretty low. Obviously the
keeping
offensive
the
explosion.
expectations low.
Listen, it's still the Los Angeles Dodgers. You cannot give them an inch, they'll take a mile. Or I should say, give them a centimeter, they'll take a kilometer. You know, to me, I think the biggest thing tomorrow is that they're gonna have to do the same thing they did today, and it's gonna be tougher with Yamamoto. This is not as kind of wild a guy. Yamamoto's not the same pitcher as Snell. Snell, a lot of bendy stuff, a lot of kind of command issues when things go sideways. That's not Yamamoto. Yamamoto is gonna pound the zone, and the Jays are gonna have to find a way to make him work in ways that they did against similarly talented Mariners pitchers. And if they can do that, you feel good, but it's going to be a big ask. And again, it's going to be really interesting because on the opposite side, on the flip side, you know, the Dodgers sounded like they were, seeking out the splitter with Savage. So Gosman, you figure it'll be a similar boat. You kind of wonder exactly how that matchup will ultimately play out tomorrow. But it's going to be really fascinating to see. I think at the end of the day, if you're the Blue Jays, I think to take game one, you're already super thrilled with this outcome. Um, would you love to go to LA up 2-0? Of course, but I think the fact that even you've taken one off of them right now and really set the tone, it changed the dynamic of this series 100%.
Yeah, I think you're going to get a pretty motivated Dodgers team tomorrow. And as far as the Gosman Yesavage stuff, I think we saw it in the Mariners series, right? Where obviously they got the Gosman look game one, and then they responded pretty well against Yesavage in game two. So, obviously Gosman is going to be dealing with that. Although, even Trey, I think how many splitters did he even throw today? Like 19 of his 80 pitches, or something like that were splitters, maybe even less. Only ten of his 80 pitches were splitters. So
Didn't go to it. Didn't go
yeah.
to it.
Yeah, we'll see how they kind of handle that. Obviously, Gosman, um, coming off his game seven relief appearance. And we'll see kind of how he bounces back. Obviously, I think if you're looking at the Kevin Gosman postseason game logs this year, um, you could probably almost count on him for 5 2/3, and maybe run into cruising through five, and then maybe run into a little bit of trouble in the sixth.
Yeah, you know what? We'll see at the end of the day.
Have
I
you?
think that there's still reason for optimism. The Blue Jays right now they're playing with house money,
Yeah,
and right now they've got the series lead. You got to feel really confident if you're the Blue Jays.
yeah. I think they certainly feel pretty confident. Have you seen Kevin Gossman's game logs from this postseason? Game one against the Yankees, 5 2/3, 4 hits, 1 run, 3 Ks. Game one against the Mariners, 5 2/3, 3 hits, 2 runs, 5 Ks. Game three against the Mariners, 5 2/3, 3 hits, 1 run, 4 Ks. So
Yeah,
he's
maybe maybe
been
maybe
pretty
take the
consistent.
under on the 6 inning total there.
Take a push on a 5 2/3. Um, yeah, gonna be a fun one though. I think the Dodgers would be very surprised if they got beat this handedly twice in a row.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that the Dodgers are going to come back tomorrow and struggle like this. It is something to note. The Dodgers offense this postseason, they've been driven by their pitching, and
Yeah.
their offense has had its lulls. Who knows? Maybe you're catching the Dodgers during one of those swoons.
It's the rust, obviously. It's the Blue Jays are riding high off their 7 game series win, and the Dodgers hadn't played in a week, so they were all sleepy and tired.
5-0, 7 versus 4 games.
Yeah,
5-0 all
yeah,
time. Also, winners of game one win the series. I think it was 70 odd percent of the time. So
yeah. Big one. Big one.
huge.
Before we run, you got any last thoughts? I mean, I feel like we kind of talked a little bit about everybody. Obviously, Ernie, another 2-hit game. Mentioned Vlad and his kind of final line. Springer, a couple more hits. But anybody else, you were kind of impressed by in this one?
Just a great team win all around. I think we touched on everybody because everybody played a hand in it. This is exactly what the Blue Jays are built to do. It's exactly how the Blue Jays win ball games, and it's how they're going to win this series if they ultimately are able to snatch 4 games from the Dodgers. They've got one down, they got three to go.
Yep, it's going to be fun, and game two is going to be fascinating with everything at stake before they head to the West Coast. So. We are going to run though. That is going to do it for us here tonight at the Bird's Eye View podcast. Make sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening along on the audio provider of your choice, make sure to drop a follow and review. You can follow us all on Twitter. I am at Worden_Zach. Jori is at J Negin-Shecter, and the pod is at BED_pod. Thanks so much for listening and enjoy game two.